everyone, it's Michele from Scrap Secrets and welcome to card number 12 in the Countdown to Christmas card series. Today we are going to be making this card using the paper piecing technique and some pattern paper that I had in my stash. Oh, here are two of the stamp sets that we're going to be using for today. These have the images in it that we're going to use. And you can see that I've placed down a honeybee oval spotlight mask down in the center. It's going to be where our sentiment is going to be stamped, and I'm going to want to block off a section, and we're actually going to paper piece the images around the masked sentiment. You'll see what I mean in a second. I'm inking up those images with Distress Oxide in Pine Needle, and I'm going around the edges. I want to make sure these images hang off of the mask because that's going to be important to help keep the shape of the masked area where our sentiment is going to be. It's also important when you're doing pattern paper to make sure that your images hang off of the cardstock, because when you cut down a piece of pattern paper, it's never exact. You're never going to cut right exactly so the pattern isn't cut off in parts. So it just looks more natural if you do that. So when I make my pattern paper, that's what I tend to do, is make sure that images go off of the page. So after I've inked up those images, I'm going to take the stamp set from the ton called Underwear Drawer, and I'm going to use these two images. Now, in the end, I only end up using one of them for the paper piecing because the one that I just placed down there, that's a solid stamp, and I was stamping in black ink. I wanted the pattern to show, not the black. Now, I could have done it black and then had the heart in red or green or whatever it was, but I decided it looked too... with the background being black, I wanted it to have more color to it than, vice versa. So I will cover those up with a different image in the final card. I'm just adding these in there to fill up some of the space. I like to start with the largest stamps first and then leave a little bit of space in between and then take the smaller images and fill in the leftover space. So that's what I'm doing here. And then once I have all the images stamped, we're going to move on to the next part. And that is stamping out the images on pattern paper. These pattern papers, I picked 3 of them, and I'm only going to show you stamping on one. These were ones that were in my stash. I use these for lipstick holders from the craft fairs in previous years. So I had these lying around, and I actually was cleaning out my craft room the other day and found these ones. So I just went through the box that had some Christmas stuff in it and picked them out. Now I'm using the mask here to go around the edge with a white jelly roll pen to create a dash line around it, kind of like a faux stitching. I did this before, but I didn't have the mask on it, and using the mask as a guide is so much better than what I tried to do. I had like a wonky oval when I tried to freehand it. So tip, use the mask. It's there anyway. So I did that, and now I'm going to just pick the pieces that I cut out. So these were stamped out in 3 different pieces of pattern paper, and I fussy cut them out. Which, now that's really unusual for me because I don't like fussy cutting, but I've been doing that a lot lately. So, I don't know, I guess I must be over my dislike of fussy cutting. So I have been doing that a lot lately. You will see some more paper piecing in the next video that I'm going to post. If you guys don't know, I'm part of the hashtag event, hashtag Till Death Do Us Craft Halloween card series, where there are 8 of us that posted on the 1st and the 31st, and then there are 7 of us that have each of us has 1 day a week, and we post a video, an Instagram post, or a blog post, or all 3 if we have it. And it's all Halloween projects. So if you type in the hashtag Till Death Do Us Craft, you will see all of the videos on here. If you put the hashtag over in Instagram, you'll see that. If you go over to my first post from that hashtag series, you'll find everybody's information in there, all 7 or all 8 people, because there's one person that can only post the 1st and the 31st day. So it's a really neat series, and I'm finding a lot of new crafters and things that I either forgot about or new techniques. So if you have a minute, go over and check it out. Okay, so let's go back to this card, and now I'm just putting the fussy cut pieces into place and, just trying to decide what colors should go where. I tried to keep the colors separated. Now there is only one true red. I only had the one piece of cardstock. I had more green. So I did pick different parts of the red cardstock or the red pattern paper, so it doesn't really look the same. It looks like I actually used 4 pieces. But just going back and forth, trying to fill up the space the best that I could. Like I said, some of them are not exactly the ones that I stamped in, but that was okay. I just wanted to get an idea of a pattern on there. So now I'm going to glue down at first the ones that are hanging off the edge, ones that have nothing to do with the mask. Oh, you see the marker there? I'm going to go around all the edges with the marker before I put it down. When you're using cardstock that has a white core, often when you fussy cut it, the white will show. So if you go around the edges with a black marker, it just gives it a more finished look. At least I think it does. I'm using my MFT On Point Precision Glue to put glue around on the cardstock and then, or the background, and then place the pattern paper piece. Geez, that's a lot of piece. the paper piecing papers down onto the background. I'm just going to go around the edges, and then after I'm done, I will actually use scissors and cut off the cardstock or the pattern paper that's actually hanging off the edge. So now I'm going to work on the sentiment area. First thing that I do is I pick one of the paper piecing papers, put it down, put the mask on top of it, and draw with pencil around the oval and cut that out, because I want to make it look like this is a pattern piece of paper where we actually put a spotlight on it and cut the sentiment out, basically cut out a piece of the center of the pattern paper for the sentiment, which will probably make more sense in a couple minutes when you see the sentiment stamped out, if that doesn't make sense, because I don't think I'm making sense right now. But again, you can see that I am going around the image with the pencil, using the oval stencil to trace that, and then using the black marker to go over that white core, putting the glue down, and then gluing the image down. We're going to do the same thing for all of the images that are around that center frame, that oval. I will go back in a couple minutes and use the white gel pen to go around some of those images. I wasn't sure how this was going to work out because I'm not great with measurements and things like that, so this is the best way that I could come up with. If you guys have a better way to do it, let me know, but this one was pretty easy. However, I did cut it short a couple times, so there were some of the images that I could actually go around and do the white dash lines around just to make it look a little bit more clean. So if that makes sense. I'm going to do the same thing for the last one and put the oval over top of it. Use the pencil to trace around the oval. Use my scissors to snip off that part. Use the black marker to go over the part where I just snipped it off. Put the MFT On Point Precision Glue onto the image and glue the image down. So now that I have most of the pieces in place, I'm actually going to just fill in some of those areas, and I cut that part out because you don't need to see me gluing things down. You know how to glue. I'm taking my scissors and going around the edges and snipping off the parts that are hanging over the card front. So after I snipped those off, I accidentally cut a little bit of the cardstock. I did fix it, but it was just a little bit of a mess today. Now we are going to be using the Hero Arts Snarky Christmas Messages, and we're going to ink it up with that Distress Oxide in Pine Needles. Oh, I'm going to put the cardstock in my MISTI because I'm going to have to stamp this a couple times. Distress Oxides and Distress Inks are not truly meant for stamping, and this was the first time that I ever used this sentiment, so I wanted to make sure that I would get a really good impression. I wanted to use my MISTI, so I realized it wasn't straight, took it out, and replaced it in there. So we're going to, again, ink it up with the Distress Oxide in Pine Needles, which is what we use to stamp out the images in the beginning. and it was not a really crisp image. I did run my hands over it. You can do that. There's a couple things you can do to prime your stamps. You can take an eraser and rub the eraser over it. You can rub your hand over top of it, or you can also use Versamark ink to prime your stamps. Over time, that film comes off of it and it makes it easier to stamp and you get a great impression. But the first couple times you use stamps, especially really well-made stamps, you may not get the greatest of first impressions. Okay, so now we are using Distress Oxide and Black Soot and a cottontail blending brush from the Rabbit Hole Designs, which I love. Their brushes are so amazing, especially with Distress Oxides. And just going around the edges of this pattern paper, again, this was a scrap that was in my stash, and just giving it a little bit of a distressed look. I like doing that. So it's mounted on a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch black cardstock as the base. The red and black cardstock is 1/8 of an inch smaller than that, and then this one is 3 3/4 by, I believe it's 5, maybe. So now I'm just taking some of the Nuevo crystal drops in Simply White and putting dots around it. I just thought it looked a little bit too plain, and I didn't want to use jewels because I wanted it to be a little bit more masculine card, because I have a hard time making masculine cards. So I thought just adding drops of white wouldn't be too girly, or adding bling to it. I wanted it to be a little bit more plain, but I like the dots on it. Kind of looks like snow. So there you go. See, I'm putting the gel pen in, and it says, "This is all you get when you stop believing in Santa." That's what the sentiment says. I thought that was super cute, because people always threatened underwear. You could do socks with it. You could do a lot of other like boring adult things. So here's a picture of the card. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you again real soon in another video. Bye!